I hope you're all doing well. If you don't know, my name's Brittany and I film videos based around the paranormal and mythological beings. Now, today we're going to talk about something that was one of my original topics that I first wanted to dive into. Granted, I haven't been making too many videos, but still one of the first ones, because I'm kind of on edge whether or not I believe that these creatures are actually real. And I didn't quite realize that there was so much lore and so much information about these creatures. So we're going to actually be talking about werewolves and lore on werewolves, way more than I would have ever guessed, but I loved diving into it to get this video up for you guys. So in some legends, people actually say that werewolves are vicious, powerful creatures who start off as human and actually morph themselves into wolves. In other legends, they are a mutant combination of a human and a wolf. However, in any legend that you will come across, they're described as these bloodthirsty animals that cannot control their lust for killing, whether it's people or lives. Say that werewolves shapeshift at will due to a curse. Other ones say that they need a full moon. Other ones say that they actually need like a pelt or like something that they actually physically put on to become this werewolf. The full moon part goes, that makes sense because you hear all the time, people are acting strange, it must be a full moon. That is a very common thing that I've heard. A full moon kind of it affects our energies, which actually can make us act a little differently, but maybe not to that extreme. But that is something that I've quite commonly heard. So it does make sense with the Werewolf Association that they would only be able to transform during a full moon. That it's said that you can actually become a werewolf. And one is the very common being scratched or bitten by one. Another one is being cursed, which is also a very common one. Another one is being conceived under a full moon. And then also sleeping under a full moon on a Friday, which I don't... Buddy. Yeah? Which I don't really know the significance to that, but anyways, then there's drinking water that has been touched by a wolf and eating special herbs. Believed that a person could be transformed into a werewolf by eating the meat of a wolf actually mixed with a person. So essentially being a cannibal. And there's actually a legend of how that started, so I'm actually going to jump into that a little bit later in the video. Dressed in a special protective wolf skin, and however they had to remove this wolf skin at daybreak and actually hide it. Now if somebody found this wolf skin, they could actually kill the werewolf. So it's very important that they hid this in a very good hiding spot and that it wasn't found. Actually, a possible medical explanation for the werewolf phenomenon. So I'm going to dive into a little bit of the different medical type things that it could actually be. Now, there is the story of Peter the Wild Boy, who in 1725 was actually found wandering naked on all fours in the German forest. Now, many thought he was a werewolf because he didn't talk and he ate with his hands. And if he wasn't a werewolf, many thought that he was at least raised by wolves. Now, he was eventually adopted by King George I and King George II to become their pet. And research has shown that Peter actually most likely had Pitt-Hopkins syndrome, which was actually discovered in 1978. So I don't know if, like, I'm kind of curious on how he ended up becoming the forest, I'm kind of curious how he actually ended up wandering the forest. But I do think it's incredibly messed up that King George I and King George II adopted him to live out his days as their pet. So that's not really a good deed. That's, I don't know, kind of adhering to the fact that he can't really talk and eats with his hands. And I feel like that's a very non-morally right thing to do instead of just trying to help him. Their medical condition, that is hypertrichosis, and that actually makes you grow long hair on your face and body. So this one makes a little bit more sense with the werewolf phenomenon. As far as the looks go, it doesn't exactly explain the temperament that the werewolf was associated with or some of the actions that they had done. Now there's also polyphyria, which actually was characterized as a sensitivity with a sensitivity of light, and people actually also had seizures, anxiety, as well as other symptoms. Now this would explain the werewolves only really coming out at night. It would explain the if they're having a seizure, I guess it could be mistaken as a werewolf transforming if someone's not really paying attention or they didn't really know what that was. And it could also, with the anxiety, it could also explain why, you know, these beings or these people didn't really want to be around other people, so they got marked as strange or something along those lines, and because of the other things, they're like, oh, okay, that's a werewolf. And then there's also clinical lycanthropy. So this is actually where someone believes that they are an animal. And in very rare cases, people actually believe that they were werewolves. Now, maybe they were, but it hasn't been 100% proven that they actually were the people that said that they were actually werewolves. Who knows where the werewolf lore actually started? There are a few different possibilities of where it could have started. So a lot of people believe that it actually started in the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is the oldest known Western prose. When Gilgamesh had a potential wife and actually decided to leave her because she had turned her previous suitor into a wolf. Now, there's also, in Greek mythology, the legend of Lycaon. Now, according to the legend of Lycaon, he was the son of Pelasgus. I probably pronounced that wrong. But he angered the god Zeus because, so when he served Zeus a meal, he actually served him a meal of a sacrificed boy. So this angered Zeus, and it angered him so much that he actually turned Lycaon into a wolf. Now, there is also a earlier Nordic folktale, which is the Saga of the Volsungs. So this saga actually tells the story of a father and son who find wolf pelts that actually will turn them into a wolf for 10 days. So they go on this murderous spree. And the spree actually ends when the father afflicts the son with a deadly wound. And the only reason that the son did not die was actually because a kind raven actually gave them a leaf with healing powers in order to save the son. Now, so I kind of turned just because of the light shining in the window. This is Merlin, our bear. You probably see him in every single video. Anyways, we're going to talk about Peter Stubb, which is probably the most known werewolf legend. And so he was a serial killer who actually claimed he was a werewolf in 1589. He claims that a wolfskin belt actually allowed him to transform into a wolf, and had said that he had slain over a dozen victims in a span of 25 years. Stubbs' tale should be taken with a large grain of salt because he was actually tortured into confessing that he was a werewolf. Two guys claimed to have seen him transform from a wolf to human form. He was tortured, which included chunks of his skin actually being ripped out, with heated pincers and limbs being crushed. So pretty terrible torture just to confess him being a wolf. A lot of people under those circumstances would actually confess to being a wolf even if they were not. So in the 1500s, a French tailor was convicted of luring in and torturing and slaying his victims before actually cooking and eating them for supper. So turning into a werewolf and terrorizing his victims at night. And although there's no exact body count, he is believed to have slain over a dozen victims. As the story goes, he actually made no attempt to defend himself, and he cursed until his last breath when he died at the stake. So we have a little guest now. Say hi, buddy. All the ones that you hear are overseas, and this one is actually an American werewolf, and it actually took place in Georgia. So as the story goes, the widowed Mildred Burt lived in a rural part of the country in the mid-19th century. One of her daughters, Emily Elizabeth Burt, actually had trouble sleeping one night, and she had extra hair and sharp teeth. Now, when a local man, William Gorman, told the Burts that someone had been killing his sheep, the mother actually feared that it was her daughter that was performing these deeds. Burt ended up going out to investigate one night. The animal actually lunged at her and attacked her. Mrs. Burt had fired at it, but the animal escaped. The next day, Emily was missing her left hand. She was sent away to Paris to be treated for lycanthropy, and the attacks had stopped, and she passed in 1911. So this one is pretty interesting because it all matches. So the mom shot at the wolf, and however, the wolf did escape. The next morning, the daughter is missing her hand, and as soon as the daughter gets sent away, no more attacks. So that one makes you kind of wonder, like, was she actually a werewolf? Because that's pretty coincidental. Now, the next one is actually the werewolf creature in Ohio. Between July and October 1972, a number of residents of Ohio allegedly saw a werewolf-like creature. Some people reported this creature to be 6 to 8 feet tall. Some people also described this creature as being human-sized with an oversized wolf-like head and an elongated nose. Another said that it had huge feet and fangs, and it ran from side to side. First, in 1991, at 8:30 p.m., a woman drove on Bray Road near Delavan, Wisconsin. The woman actually felt her front right tire actually jump right off the pavement as if it hit something. The woman stopped her car, looked into the dark, and felt chests that had started running towards her. Tried to get back into her car, so she ran back into her car. When she got back into her car, the creature actually jumped on her, falling off because the trunk was too wet from the rain. Later, the woman actually returned to a friend to see what it was, and they saw a large figure rising from the side of the road. Now, there's another Wisconsin werewolf encounter from In 1989, she was driving on Bray Road. So this is actually the same exact road. That she had seen a person hunched, kneeling on the side of the road. And to her surprise, the creature actually stared at her and was no more than 6 feet away from the passenger side. It was covered in grayish brown hair with big fangs and pointed ears. Described his face being so long with a pointed snout like a figure's eyes glowed in the darkness as a yellowish gold color. He said the arms were very strange. Look, they were jointed like a man or woman's would be. He was holding his hands with his palms upward. The arms were muscular like a man who had worked out a little bit. The sighting lasted about 45 seconds and she had no idea what the creature could be. She saw an illustration in a library of a werewolf. So as soon as she saw this illustration, she knew that's what she saw, which is pretty insane because she saw this creature and she knew it was a human. She knew it was nothing that she had ever known of before. The last werewolf sighting that I'm going to talk about was around the same time as the one that I had just told you about, and it was in Elkhorn, near Delavan. A dairy farmer by the name of Scott Bray saw a strange-looking dog along his pasture on Bray Road. It was bigger and taller than a German Shepherd. It had pointy ears and hairy tail with long, scragglish, grayish black hair. He was built heavy in the front, a really strong chest. And in the soft soil nearby, he actually found footprints which had a 4 to 5 inch diameter. Now, Bray Road seems like a very common place for all of these werewolf sightings. So it kind of leads you to wonder, is there actually a werewolf on Bray Road in Wisconsin? So these are some of the most popular or more recent werewolf sightings. Not to say that there's not a werewolf out there. You kind of start to wonder if there is, because some of these sightings are so similar and they're in the same location, and so it is interesting if these sightings could have been a werewolf. Now, I do want to know, well, we want to know what you guys think. We want to know if you think that there is a possibility that werewolves could exist, and if these sightings, if they were actually werewolves, what you guys think. Now, you can find all the information to connect with me down below in the info. I hope you guys continue to do great and keep your heads up, keep that light around you, and we will see you next time.